Welcome in, belly up, have a seat, and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman fantasy football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the league podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I am joined by my pal here, Mr. Bernie the Bounty Hunter, aka Team B.
I'm Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
How are you doing today, Bernie?
I'm doing well, Michael. Thanks for having me in at the bar again.
Oh, I was waiting for a little catchphrase or something this time around.
Oh, next time.
That's all right. That's fine. All right. So, guys, this is episode 86, and we are going to do another positional preview. This time, we're going to tackle the wide receiver / tight end. For all of you that are unaware, in the Wingman Fantasy Football League, I don't think, and I make the rules, I don't think tight ends are good enough to roster all 12 or 15 of them. So we mix them in with the receivers. So only the top 6 are usually rostered. And in a pinch, we can always pick up those mid-tier tight ends if we have bye week or injury concerns. All right. Before we get any further along, though, I do want to make sure that everyone is in the room. So let's make sure everyone's here.
Wingmen assemble!
All right. So what is your quick thought on the merging of wide receiver tight ends before we get any further along here, Mr. Bernie?
I'm okay with it, but I'm not a fan of it. I think that it needs to be a separate category, but I understand the reasoning behind it not being it.
Very good. Also, for our league members out there, we are officially up to 12 managers once again. We dropped down to 10 last year, and it was okay, but we are back to 12 as both Ben's brilliant team this time around and Crazy Fish, that is Andrew, he is joining. They're both joining us back after a year hiatus. So we have 12 teams. We'll have 3 divisions, 3 division winners, and 6 teams making the playoffs. Just a nice, even way for the season to go. What do you think about that one?
I like it. I think it's good. It's a good change. I like it.
All right. So before we get into our positional preview of wide receivers, we are going to check in on the latest news and notes really quickly. All right, we have a short list of news this week, and that is good news because all the games this week, as far as the early Sunday games, have occurred, and they were minimal to pretty much no injuries, but there are a couple minor ones, of course. But the biggest news is that Gardner Minshew has been named the Week 1 starter for the Las Vegas Raiders. The stash is going to get behind center once more to see if he can throw some ducks to some receivers that need some help. And Jamar Chase is still on a holdout, and according to him, contract negotiations have stalled. They've gone quiet this past week. We're not sure if it's quiet before the storm or if they are just not answering each other's calls. On the other hand, Evan McPherson, kicker for the Bengals, has received a contract extension. It is good to know that the Bengals are prioritizing kicker over number 1 receivers. And Jaylen Warren sustained a hamstring injury on Saturday against the Bills. The severity at this point is not known. However, this may open the door for Najee Harris to take over the backfield, especially in the early part of the season. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling is injured his neck, and he's going to need some time off from dropping long bomb passes. All right, any news items there that caught your attention, Team B?
No, nothing that really stood out. Oh, yes. Wait, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Gardner Minshew? What?
Yes.
What's going on here?
Aiden O'Connell is going to take a back seat. I watched that game last night. They played their starters, at least Zamir White played in the second half, and as did their tight ends. But Brock Bowers did not play at all, neither did Devontae Adams. But they had Minshew play for over a quarter, maybe a quarter and a half of a quarter, and then O'Connell came in for most of the rest of the game, and neither looked great. O'Connell looked pretty bad once again.
Yeah. Maybe Gardner just has that attitude and that edge that the coach is looking for.
Yeah, they're realistically, we're kind of hoping Minshew will get the starting job the whole time, as he is competent and he's sustained some high level receivers in his day, but he's not very good either. He's a risk taker. He's like a Carson Wentz type of player, or a Jameson Winston type of player. Not as turnover prone, but you might have a quarter and a half of nice play and then a quarter of trash. But Aiden O'Connell he just can't get it. He's just not good enough.
Yeah, I love me some famous Jameis though. I'll ride him. He's got some big big points on that big arm sometimes.
Yeah.
And we don't get negative points in our league
No, we have
for
no negative points, and
interceptions.
that is a
Yeah.
big some people aren't used to that, but so when you look at our rankings from our WDK, keep in mind that we do not put in their negative rankings. So if you think a quarterback is going to throw the ball away, you take that into consideration yourself. Speaking of the WDK, it is coming out on Monday, later today at the end of business day. So go ahead and go to wingmanfantasyfootball.com and you can go ahead and pre-order. And by the end of tomorrow, you can order your copy of the WDK. Are you excited about this?
Oh, I am very excited about this. The Wingman Draft Kit might be the single best investment as far as winning a fantasy football league this year.
Wow, that's high praise. You know what? You know what else has high praise? Our famous celebrity endorser, and we're going to see what he has to say about our WDK.
Listen to me. It's your last action hero, your true life spy, and of course, your favorite kindergarten teacher. I want to let you know that it is not a rumor. The Wingman Draft Kit is the best tool out there to prepare you for your fantasy football draft. Let Bernie and Michael pump you up and get you into the best shape of your life in terms of draft day preparation. With Wingman consensus player rankings, ADP, tier rankings, including cross-reference material to other major fantasy sites, with positional strength of schedules, mock draft results, and so much more. The WDK will help you dominate your league and dominate the competition. I need you to get down to wingmanfantasyfootball.com right away to order your copy of the WDK, the Wingman Draft Kit. I've got to go, but don't worry, I'll be back. But right now I must head to the chopper. Hasta la vista, baby.
All right, once again, just to remind you guys, the WDK will have Wingman consensus rankings, and we're going to use those for the first time tonight when going over our positional discussion here about our wide receivers / tight ends. It'll also give you ADPs of up to 8 competitive sites, so you can see what other sites are doing. Like I said, a little tricky is instead of asking a player, who do you have in your top tier, just say, what site have you been looking at, and just see, and you'll have an idea of what trends they might be following in terms of who they might be looking at as values, and you can get a little bit of an insight on when you might be able to find some values in your draft coming up. All right, let's get right into it, Bernie. We have our wide receiver tight end rankings, and we've created them with a Wingman consensus. We took both of our rankings, of course, did the average here, and I don't know if you have it up yet or not. I'm looking at it right here. Do you want to start from the top, the middle, somewhere in the value, or do you want to start at here?
We can start at the top. I think, and I do have a hard copy. I'm old school like that. I think at the top. I think the first 4 players are pretty interchangeable. That's my opinion on it. Lamb, Hill, Chase, Jefferson, AJ Brown.
And I would say Amon-Ra probably fits in that category before the next receiver, I would say.
Well, I was trying to leave his name out because I want him.
Okay. So in our first, we'll stay at 5 here. We'll stay up to AJ Brown. So when you're looking at our consensus rankings, it shows our average between the two of us, but it also shows you a list of each one of ours, so you can see which one of us has which players ranked where. And the first one that catches my attention in this first 5 is AJ Brown, who finishes in 5th as an average, but you have him as 7th, which is very status quo, and I have him rated as the 2nd highest receiver this year. What am I drinking? What do you think about that discrepancy there, Mr. Bernie?
If you would have asked me before the beginning of the season last season, I would have said, yeah, you're spot on. AJ Brown, he could be riding at that number 2 spot. But after having him on my team last season and not getting certain wins earlier in the season because of whatever was going on between him and the coach and him and the quarterback, really kind of hampered me. So I need to see something before I put him back up there. Season long wise, he's a great player. He's going to put up great stats, but season long wise.
Well, I have to say, last year you took him in the latter half of the first round, and I always consider him a 2nd round pick. So I was surprised. And then just to top that off, I just flipped the switch and even put him higher up after I was being surprised how high he went last year.
You know what? Also, he's good friends with your boy Julio Jones, and maybe he's your new Julio.
I talked to Crazy Fish today just to double check that he was in because he hasn't actually signed into our league yet, and he's good. And then I mentioned to him that we were going to sell our, we were going to offer our, we were going to offer our consensus rankings. And he's like, "Do you have Julio Jones at the top of the list?" And I was like, I should just do that as a joke and have him highlighted in some sort of clear distinction that he's. But he did play last year for the Eagles.
Yeah. So it's one of those things because he's good buds with AJ Brown.
There you go. So of these top 5 here, we both have CeeDee Lamb ranked 1, although that's getting a little dicier with this holdout situation. Yep. What do you think? Does holdouts, in your experience or your memory, do holdouts lead to bad outcomes during the regular season, or there's as long as they're in before the season starts, they're good to go, especially if they're veterans who've been on the team multiple years?
So yeah, there's a lot of factors that come into play with that. I think that the trend that I've noticed, and I don't really have any data to support this or back this up outside of my hazy memory, is that I think that the players that are holding out in recent years are starting to leak into the week 1, week 2, kind of not playing. And that scares me a little bit for somebody ranked so high. It's like, if I'm going to get all those points on the back end, how do I know I'm not going to miss playoffs by 1 or 2 games, which I could have won with you on my team of the first 2 weeks.
Right.
So one of those things.
So he's still number 1, of course, for both of us. I am wary. I don't want to have the pick where I have to make that choice kind of thing. And just as a little hint, I pushed some running backs up ahead of CeeDee Lamb to make it where the odds are if I have the 3rd, 4th pick, he'll be gone and I'll get the running back I want. Like, I didn't push the receivers ahead of him, but I moved some of the running backs up so he would be like that, 4th, 5th overall pick instead of a 2nd overall pick.
Right. And let's just be clear for our listeners. We're talking wide receiver 1. We're not talking number 1 overall.
Wide receiver 1, right? In a half-point PPR league. In a half-point PPR
wide receiver
league.
1, half-point PPR league. Exactly.
Correct. In a league that we have to start 2 wide receivers, but there are 2 flexes, so you could play up to 4 wide receivers. So wide receiver is a very important position.
Right. But both of us, have somebody else as our number 1 overall pick for the draft. So
correct.
Overall, where do you see CeeDee going overall? Probably in the 4 spot.
For me,
4 or 5 spot. Yeah.
For me, I have him 4.
Yeah.
For I would assume he's going to go 2. I'm assuming he's going to go 2. And if he doesn't go 2, it's because someone's taking Tyreek Hill ahead of him. I don't think. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Depends who has which pick. But I don't think anyone else in our league is putting a running back other than Christian McCaffrey ahead of CeeDee Lamb or Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I agree with that. Except for Nick. I think if Waddle away gets the number 1 pick, all bets off. Tyreek might go number 1.
So Nick's our one of our friends in our league. His name's Nick, and his team name is Waddle Away. And I've got a little sound I like to play just because it's a fun sound to play.
Sorry, Alex.
Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle. Then he waddled away, waddle, waddle. Then he waddled away.
Yeah, Alex is throwing his phone
We just
at the
lost
wall.
1 subscriber right there.
So I do have concerns, even though he's awesome, and I've always rated him so higher than most people, even though he's been rated high the last couple of years. But Tyreek Hill, he freaks me out because he's getting older. He hasn't had one of those. I'm not trying to jinx anybody. Trust me. I'm just talking about normal concerns.
Yeah.
He's a quick twitch guy, and he hasn't had one of those quick twitch like calf/hamstring quad injuries. And he keeps doing these backflips, and they freak me out. And I'm just waiting for him one time to just do one of those things and just his calf explode. And it's just enough. That's what I think. That's what made me move AJ Brown up. Just the youth and the streak that Tyreek Hill is on has been amazing. And the combination of age and streak, I just feel like it's gotta. There's a chance that something bad could happen.
Some athletes are just built different, though.
That's fair. That's more than fair.
They're all elite athletes, but some of them just genetics, just tendon strength, all these little details are built different. Like our discussion last episode about the hamstrings, and you telling us that Christian Watson has a different size hamstring, so it's kind of one of those things. It's Don't worry about it. Tyreek's good. He knows what he's doing.
Okay. Yeah. So the next one on here is Jamar Chase, and we have him averages 4, but we do have a split at 3 and 5. I think I'm
Yeah.
a little more concerned with this holdout situation again. These are just variables that, again, that's what's pushing up AJ Brown. That he's in camp, he's on a team he's had good numbers with, and the other guys all just have either age or contract or bad quarterbacks. So I
Yeah.
think that's what made AJ Brown move up for me, and why Jamar Chase has moved down a couple spots for me. What's your thought on him with his holdout, first of all, and do you think it's going to be an issue going forward?
Okay. So again, don't want to throw shade anybody's way, but something about the Bengals. I mean, they're great, and I would definitely want them on my team. But if it was sitting there and it was AJ Brown and Jamar Chase, or if it was Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamar Chase, I would not automatically say Jamar Chase.
So you'd think about it, you probably still pull the
Yeah.
trigger, but it wouldn't be like a, oh, I'm
It
glad
would
I got him. He's right here. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. So he's one of those guys, and I think he's more so like that than CD Lamb is. CD Lamb
Got you.
is
So
is
you
more of
would
a good.
you potentially look. You might not move the other receivers ahead of him, but you might glance over and see which running backs are available, for
Yeah,
example.
exactly.
Okay. So we got Justin Jefferson. We both have him at 4. So this is right across the board here.
Mhm.
And so he had his starting quarterback is healthy, but the quarterback we all wanted to start eventually, if not sooner than later, JJ McCarthy is now out for the year. So it's going to be Sam Darnold. They still have Nick Mullins as the backup, and you thought they might sign someone off the street to bolster their quarterback room, and they did, and it was a no-name guy, not one of those veteran type players who might be able to step in. So they're going to ride with Darnold and potentially Mullins. Does that change your outlook or give you kind of temper your outlook for Justin Jefferson, or is a stud is a stud is a stud?
Um, I wouldn't go 3 studs,
Okay.
but I would go 1 stud, and I would say it does temper my enjoyment of drafting him a little bit.
Being that he was the number 1 overall consensus pick last year,
Yeah.
falling to 4th in receiver is a drop, but still he's going to be in the middle of the first round between, I would say, picks 5 and 9.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think you're going to be mad that you got him, and I don't think that you're going to be upset that you drafted him as high as he's going to go. I think it's just one of those things. He's one of those elite players.
All right, why don't you read down the next group of receivers you want us to talk about here?
So let's peek down. Let's start getting right out of the top 10.
Okay.
Let's go. We've got Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 11, and he's a particular one because he's a rookie. I can't recall a rookie getting that high of an ADP in recent years. And again, my memory is a little hazy. So is that too high for a rookie?
It is, like you said, in terms of ADP for a rookie, that is very high.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's too high for
Yeah.
this particular player. And in all honesty, I'm not a big college football fan. I watched my team, the UCF, Central Florida.
Right.
And so I didn't watch a lot of them, to be honest with you. I haven't seen any Arizona preseason games as of yet. I'm not even sure if he's been on the field just because I haven't seen him at all. So, but everything is that he's just so good. And if he's not on the field, it's because he's so good. They don't want to put him out there and tip their hand.
Yeah.
So I have him lower than you because of the concerns with rookiness and just unknowns.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to, this is one of those things, this is word of mouth. Everyone says he's
The hype
the
train.
best prospect out of coming out, and he's great and everything else. So if you want a piece of the Arizona passing game, he's de facto number 1. All else they have would be like Trey McBride, and that's a tight end.
Right. And so on either side of him, you've got Cooper
yes.
Kupp at 10 and Puka Nacua at 12.
So-
Let's talk about those two guys. That's
So
a
this
number
is
one and
another
number 2
one of
receiver,
our
right?
wider discrepancies here. This might be the next big one in the list here. We have Cooper Kupp. You have him at 14, which again is very responsible. I moved up to the 7th wide receiver. That's just crazy. I just kept doing it. I was like,
Wow.
In our history here, every time you count Cooper Kupp out, the last time he had his best great year, he dropped down to the 3rd round, and then you pick him in the 1st round, and he falls off. Like you're playing from last year, and he always, does the opposite or improves when he has a bad year and falls back a little bit. I think one stretch he had 2 back-to-back good years, but since then, I think my brother had him in the 3rd round. He was the number 1 receiver, and the next year he went like the 2nd overall pick, and he fell back.
Right. Yeah, I think Alex. They took
Alex
our
did have him
jobs
last year in the
drafted-
2nd round.
Yeah. So okay. And Nacua.
I'm just in terms of both these players, the thing that scared me as I was even moving them up, but it just kind of comfort level here, is their outlooks are directly tied to an older quarterback in Matthew Stafford. Are we worried? Matthew Stafford's a tough dude. I'm not saying that, but he has been banged up with all sorts of stuff: back, shoulder, neck.
Yeah.
Not legs and everything else. So he's a little dinged up right now. They say it's very minor, but being that the one game that he missed last year, I remember I had Puka. I sat him. That quarterback, I think it was Brett Rippon. They did nothing, absolutely nothing. So they're tied to an older quarterback. Although their backup this year is doing very well in preseason, not sure it's going to translate in the regular season. So that's what makes those two players nervous. I want those guys, but I'm not going to be excited to take them because it's going to be that queasy feeling tying their wagons to an elder quarterback.
Yeah, I can see that definitely. And then the last thing I really see here, as far as that little grouping right there, would be that Travis Kelce would be our first tight end off the board in the mix of wide receiver tight end position that we hold in our teams. And he's going at 17.
And we both put him at that same spot, or 17 and 16. So like we both had, that was the time where the best, arguably interesting enough, we both put, I'd have to double check here. Yes, we both put Kelce ahead of Laporta.
Yeah.
So we
that was my question. Is it Laporta and Andrews? Are they that far off of Kelce? Is Kelce still that man?
They're not that far off, but I think, again, with Andrews having his general injury history, he's recently been in a car accident, although he's deemed to be okay. Laporta's like, he was so good. Can he do it again? And Kelce's like, even a bad year last year, he was still a top. I feel like his range is still 2 or 3, and the other guys could be 1 to 9 kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
But what I find interesting is the group right between the Puka Nacua and Travis Kelce in our list here. These are the guys who are the younger receivers. Some have shown some stuff. Some have not shown it yet, and we're still waiting. These are Chris Olave, Drake London, Nico Collins, and Jalen Waddle. Jalen Waddle's had a great year, but he had a down year last year. Nico Collins finally had his breakthrough a year late last year. And Drake London and Chris Olave are entering their 3rd season. They've been hyped up for 2 years, but they still haven't had that breakout season. What do you think about that crop of receivers? I think they're pretty interesting. They're the guys that I am afraid to take, but if you get them and they hit, you're like a genius.
So Jalen Waddle is the only one, I believe, last year that had an injury or that was playing through an injury. So I think that he's probably the number 1 out of those 4. And then I think Drake London would be next, because I think with Cousins coming in, he's going to be spotlighted a little bit better than in previous years.
So that's interesting you say that, because you have Jalen Waddle way down compared to where I have him. Yet in this group, obviously we're going to amend our rankings as the season goes on. So I might be using a little bit of a, last week's ranking. So I'm not saying you're locked in there, of course. But as of when this was first put together, you had him at 22. I had him at 11. This is Jalen Waddle we're talking about. So have you changed your mind in the last week or so to move him up past those guys and get him closer to 16 or so?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I initially have him lower because I did have him last year, and so it was kind of a biased sort of leaning where he kind of let me down. Like, it's one of those where I need to see it, and if it is a lingering injury, then it's one of those things that's going to pop up again. It's scary to put him a little bit higher just because of that.
Well, of that group.
But of that group, just looking at it raw, if they're all playing at their top of their game, I like those two up above.
Well, he's definitely in the you assume better offense, but of that particular group, of that young group of receivers, he's the only number 2 receiver. Nico Collins is a little trickier, but you would assume he's the one. Drake London is definitely the one, and Chris Olave is definitely the one. So of that group, Waddle is the one who's taking a for sure backseat behind a teammate.
Oh yeah, for sure. But raw talent wise, I think he's a little bit above of those guys.
All right, before we get on to our next group of players, I want to play a little game with you. We're going to slide down where we're it's hard to say exactly where they're going to go, but we're going to say like that 4th to 6th round type of receiver here. And we're going to play a little game here called target, avoid, or sure, I'll take him, but just not at that price.
Okay.
So the way this works, if there's someone who's kind of projected to go in the, say, third or fourth round, you take him in the third round if there's not obvious superstars left on the board that fell. You take him around early to make sure you get them.
Yeah.
Avoid means you're only going to take him if they fall like 4 or 5 rounds. Eventually, everyone's is draftable.
Right.
And then sure, but not at that price means you're not taking an ADP, but you'll take him a round or 2 later, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of looking at a random group here in the middle that are kind of a mix of some older guys and some middle-aged guys here who have had up and down seasons. So let's start with let's see, DJ Moore, Mark Andrews, Michael Pittman, Devontae Smith, Amari Cooper, and George Pickens. That's a pretty big list. We'll slow it down here. So what I start? DJ Moore, Mark Andrews, Michael Pittman, Devontae Smith, and Amari Cooper. And I said George Pickens. All right, Let's start with the bottom one here. George Pickens. We have him rated as the 28th receiver. We both have him rated there, so we think similarly on him. The 28th receiver, you would say, is about a 4th round pick. So what do you classify George Pickens as? A target, avoid, or sure, but not at that price?
I would say target.
Yeah, he piqued your interest a little bit there when it comes to that group.
I think so.
I think for me, I don't trust Russell Wilson anymore, and I don't trust him not to have a blow up. So I would say he's definitely not an avoid. I would say if he falls a round or 2 and it's like he's still there, then I would pull the trigger for that type of player.
Right.
All right. What about Michael Pittman Jr. here? Our rankings are way off, so I have an idea what you might say about this one. Michael Pittman Jr. Our consensus is 25th, so in that same range, probably a late 3rd to early 5th at the latest. What do you think about a target, avoid, or sure, but not at that price?
Target.
Target. I see that. I knew that coming in here because you have him rated as 16th. You have him right even with Travis Kelce. I have him down at 36th. So you'd put him as a 2nd round, early 3rd round receiver. Well, I'd have him as a 5th round receiver.
Yeah. Who's going to get more snaps? Who's going to get more targets than him on that team? And with somebody having to spy the quarterback, some of those routes are going to be, plus 25 yards downfield.
I understand. Obviously, I don't have him there. It's a numbers game here. But yeah, that's none of those all those points are valid for sure.
Right.
Next, we have here on that same list, DJ Moore. We both have him rated equally here at 23 and 21. And I'm going to start on this one. This is, we talked about it a little bit last episode with the quarterback preview when we talked about Caleb Williams, and you're saying he has all these weapons, and the argument there is that there's enough weapons to support for the quarterback to have enough numbers, but is there enough numbers for each of those weapons to have a strong season on their own? I'm telling you, I'm starting to get into. I haven't watched any Hard Knocks, so I'm not getting any of the production style. But I've watched a couple preseason games, and that man looks amazing. And I think how you said they had a weak offensive line, and I mentioned he could move. He throws better on the move than he does in the pocket. And if he's gonna be running away just because that's the way the play is gonna break down. I feel like he's the type of guy who's gonna look downfield like Russell Wilson did back in his heyday. Oh, yeah. Like Deshaun Watson did early in his career. Yep.
Oh yeah.
So I feel like I'm gonna relate him to Deshaun Watson back with Houston, and I kind of feel like DeAndre Hopkins is the mix of both of Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, and I feel like a Dunze is going to be that Will Fuller. Yep. Like if he gets enough bombs, he's going to have a strong year from that 3rd receiver position on that team.
All right. Well, so that's I like to hear that.
So I think we're both on the. Yeah. I still don't say I want to target because there's 3 mouths to feed, but he's definitely gonna. I'll say yes at that price.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. And then what about that Mark Andrews?
Mark Andrews. I've never drafted Mark Andrews. I know he's good, but I always feel like he's inconsistent. And I've never been on the train to know what it feels like. So you definitely have him rated higher here. If I'm looking at this, oh no, that's his bye week. You do have him rated higher, but not by a lot.
Not by a lot. A couple of spots.
I don't look for tight ends unless the wide receivers dry up. So he would be a yes, but not at that price.
Even though he is the safety blanket, he is the go-to guy when things need to happen. That's everything shuts down, and we're going to Mark Andrews.
I don't. I have no argument there. Just like I said, I've never.
Yeah.
I haven't watched. He's never been on my team, so I've never watched his games closely. To like when
Yeah.
you're watching every snap and seeing which way they're looking. I know he gets numbers sometimes, but also I feel like he gets some. He's like a. I'm not saying he's the same player, but Kittle, where Kittle will finish at the end of the year with a high number, but he's got some boomer bust type games, and I
Right.
love Kittle. I've seen him play, but I feel you can get Kittle way later for the same type of player, in my opinion, without knowing Andrews very very well.
Yeah, yeah. I hear that. I hear that.
Who else
All
do we
right.
have? We had
So
Amari. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no. Go ahead. You got it.
I was going to say Amari Cooper, another older guy who's a number one receiver
Hmm.
on a potentially good offense. It's hard to say. What do you think about Amari Cooper here?
So I like Amari Cooper's, but I think it's too early. Or what was the option for me?
Yes, but not at that price.
Yes, but not at that price.
All right, so we have him rated as a 27th receiver in our consensus ranking. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say exactly where that would fall, but just say if it even was even, it wouldn't be even, but say even receivers to running backs and quarterbacks gone. That's like the 50th to 58th pick.
Yeah.
So is that the 5th round?
Yeah, something like that.
So you would take him, but maybe in the 6th or 7th round is what you're telling me.
Yeah, if we're hovering around this area with these players, I would hold off one more round. I think I could get him. I think depending on my draft position, obviously.
You'd be willing to gamble to see if he makes it back,
Yeah,
as opposed to I need to get him now before I lose
there's
him.
some players there that other people would pick up, and I
Right.
might be.
And that's what I mean by yes, but not that price. Like,
Yeah.
I will take him, but I'm not going to pull the trigger unless I kind of exhausted one more look through.
And that's another thing when you're drafting is know your league, know how those guys pick. You might have somebody that likes to do runs on a certain position, and you know that, oh, he's only got one of this position. His next round is going to be that position, so I'm safe. Like know these things, these little details that'll help you when you have to make decisions like that.
Was that a backhanded shot of me taking a run on quarterbacks by myself again? Is that what that was?
No, you're projecting, Michael. You're projecting.
I'm just playing. And we got one more here. And this one, I've heard people love this guy. I'm just kind of a more of a sure, but we'll take him later. Devontae Smith. A lot of people really want to get in on that Philly offense. Obviously, I have A.J. Brown rated higher, but he just hasn't shown me enough to be like a Jalen Waddle type of quality player in terms of counting stats.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. I think the offense that he's on, the potential that they have, the projection that they have as a total offense is what bumps him up, and his talent. But I take Waddle over him.
Okay. I got before we get down to some maybe some sneaky.
Oh, so
sleep.
maybe not at that price.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, we kind of got lost got a little loose there with the game. That's all right. We kind of made it up on the fly here. So before we get into some maybe later round potentially targets or sleepers, I do want to. We have to talk about. We did a little bit last week with the Bears, but we have to talk about this Houston Texans receiving core with Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs. So let's talk about their values. Well first, I was going to make a new graphic. I didn't get around to it yet. I'm going to have a new graphic called In a Vacuum, and we'll have a vacuum cleaner go by. So in a vacuum, how would you rate these three receivers on the Texans? Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs.
So to rate them, just to rank them quickly, I would say, because it's his first year, I'm going to put him at number 2. So I would say Collins, Diggs, and then Dell.
Okay.
Just because Collins has that rapport already. The timing is there. The one season looked great. And then Tank Dell is going to be a good player, but he's not elite like Stephon Diggs is. So maybe next year I would do Diggs, Collins, Tank.
Okay, so you still have faith. A lot of people have it Diggs third for a handful of reasons.
Right.
Age, being new to the team, potential attitude problems. But you have faith in Diggs, and you just think it's going to take him time as opposed to any kind of talent deficiency going forward here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have faith that his talent is that good.
So if both Diggs and Tank Dell are on the board still, are you waiting? Do you have Diggs that much higher than Dell where you would take him, or are you waiting to see which one goes and then you're just going to take the third? If you were to take one at all, obviously.
Yeah, I would wait. Just because I'm not targeting on my personal big board, Houston Texans.
Okay.
So that might make me just wait and whoever's left and they're worth it, go for it.
So to be clear here, we both have. Let's see. We both have sorry. We both have a Diggs ahead of Tank Dell. Actually, that's not true. I have Tank Dell 1 spot ahead of Diggs, and you have Diggs 5 spots ahead of Dell. So they're only 4 spots ahead in our consensus rankings. They're pretty closely rated. I have them back to back because I was just like, whatever one. I think they're even. Whichever one goes first, I'm willing to take the latter.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah.
And just talking about the one we have clearly ahead here in Nico Collins, he is, let's see, rated 15th, while the other 2 are rated like in the early 30s. So that's 20 receivers behind. Do you think Nico Collins is worth that price compared to his teammates, being that it's a good 3 rounds ahead of the other 2?
Yes, I do. I think that relationship, that receiving combination, quarterback receiver combination, is going to just be as good, and then maybe take a step up.
So we are very similar there in that we kind of have Tank Dell and Stephon closely rated, not enough to pick one over the other. We'll let the field pick for us if we were going to take either of them at all.
Yeah.
But we are definitely willing to take Nico Collins at in a late second, early third. Maybe not a target, but his value is appropriately placed.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. You want to you have your sheet there. It might be on your second or third sheet. You want to look ahead and see if you can find any late draft targets and or sleepers that you would want to bring up?
Let's see what we got here. Put me on the spot, Michael. Put me on the spot.
I'm sorry. That's my fault.
Johnny Smith.
Okay. Oh, wow. What number is he at here?
So we've got him all the way down at wide receiver, tight end, 106.
Whoa, you went way down. Okay. Yeah. All right, Jonnu Smith. I didn't even rate him. You had him at okay, go ahead.
Rate him. So Jonnu, and maybe it's a homer pick because he was on the Falcons, and he was productive enough on the Falcons. He's now on the Dolphins. And Mike McDaniels has made some comments about, using the tight end position a little differently than he had in the past. So, it's one of those things. If you got an extra spot on your bench, know how many spots you got in your league, it might be a nice little stash away, my little watch list. If you're playing Yahoo, just keep him in the back of mind, pick him up when you see an opening, maybe for a bye week or something like that.
So I'm going to go a little higher. That's a little low for me to have a strong opinion on those types of players. So let's see what we got here. A lot of these are just kind of like guys that just kind of fell into their spots. So I'm trying to see if anyone that I would target a little later.
I got one for you.
Go ahead.
Let me hear your take on Gabe Davis.
I'm looking at him right now. We both have him the same, 71 and 74. He came in at 72 on the consensus.
Yeah.
I don't know what his role. I'm not saying in a negative way. I just don't know what his role is going to be. I know, like we talked last week, that you have a little more faith in Trevor Lawrence. I think he's got a chance, and I'm taking this from the CBS Fantasy Football Today show a little bit, but I agree with this take. Is that I feel like he might have potentially a huge first week as they play against the Dolphins, and it might be a shootout, and he's going to be one of the first waiver wire pickups that people are going to drop 2 weeks later.
Okay. Yeah, I can get on board with that.
But if you're like how my team was last year, where I wasn't able to get wide receivers, so I kept pushing them back, and you just need someone to get you through a week or two while you figure it out, that might be someone you can play and just kind of give you an extra week to think about it if you're a wide receiver deficient roster.
Right. And then the other guy that's on a new team, Jerry Jeudy.
I haven't heard anything about him this year.
That's what's a little not concerning, but intriguing.
He'd be a last pick, like I said, when you have no one left. Like, there's a name maybe, but I haven't heard anything like anything bad or good. I feel like maybe did he get tweaked injury early on or had like some I don't know. I'm wondering if he's on his last legs. He's switched teams to a team that doesn't have a lot of a reason to keep him around if he's not doing well.
Okay.
So I have him. We have him higher than the Gabe Davis, for example. But
Yeah.
that's definitely an avoid to sure, but not at that price. That's like if he's still around your last pick and you need a receiver, might as well take a shot at it.
Right. Gotcha. And then Old Faithful Taysom Hill.
I know. I was surprised how high he ended up because you have to put him on there just for the fact that if you need a pinch, you have a shot at two touchdowns.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of those guys. So
he's going to be picked up and dropped at least 3 times, and he'll only be played when he gets zeros, and he'll be on the bench or waiver when he gets those 2 touchdown games.
yeah, and somebody will make the comment, be like, "You don't have to keep dropping him and picking him back up. Nobody's going to pick him up. You can just let him sit out there for a while."
Oh, now that Crazy Fish is back, he's going to be on his roster a couple times. So one name that's kind of sticking out to me here in this middle late area, right above Kyle Pitts here, we have Xavier Worthy, rookie wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. And he only caught, I don't know if he caught more than 1 pass. He did catch a touchdown in Saturday's preseason game. I thought he caught a bomb, but I'm now that I'm thinking about it, I might have the numbers mixed up. Maybe it was Rashee Rice. I thought it was him, but now I'm not positive. It was a single-digit receiver.
Right.
But if it was Worthy, who I first thought it was before I second guessed myself, he looked like the deep threats that they've had with MVS, for example. But he dove and caught the ball. He's fast and can catch. And someone in that offense, Tyreek Hill, before his full game blossomed when he was just the running screens or running bombs.
Right.
If you can have a guy who can catch any percentage of those, the problem is the guys they had last year and the year, last year and the year before couldn't catch those at all. They dropped him so many times. If you can have a guy who can catch any percentage of that, that is worth something.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just don't know how many of those attempts he's going to get with Hollywood Brown over there.
Well, Hollywood Brown's hurt now.
Oh, so I am late on that news.
They had a name for it. It was some sort of subluxation, so it was either a collarbone / shoulder thing, and he's gonna not out forever, but he's gonna be out a few weeks while that settles down. So that's gonna. I know I had Marquise Brown as that potential, like he's gonna be better than you think, but with Worthy having a nice early chemistry and having no one in that spot ahead of him for a few weeks, he might get more chemistry. And Marquise Brown only has a 1-year deal, so if Worthy catches on, they're not going to feel the necessity to put Marquise Brown in ahead of him anyway.
Well, let me just go ahead and mark that on my sheet here.
Okay.
Worthy. Okay.
He's not out for the year, but he is hurt right now. There's one other player that so after, again, it was weird. I had no thought on the Bears, and you had all the love last episode, but Rome Odunze has moved up to a top 45 receiver for me. He looked like not like the skinny Will Fuller, but the guy who is, when Caleb Williams is running around, he's the guy who's going to run downfield looking for that open spot deep. And I feel like they're going to have a connection, and they're going to hit 3 to 4 scramble bombs, not 80 yards, but like that 38-yard out.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're going to get that more than once a game. And they're already having fun. And he actually caught a touchdown, but out of the back of the end zone, so it didn't count on Dunze. But again, it was on a scramble. He ran parallel to the back of the end zone with Caleb Williams, and Caleb Williams fired a rocket, a line drive, didn't get higher than 12 feet in the air, and went 30 yards downfield. It was amazing, and he was just standing out of bounds. So I think they're going to have the chemistry play, maybe not the volume play, but he's going to be one of those guys you can throw in as a third receiver and or flex for sure.
Look at you getting on the Bears bandwagon, and I like to see it. The Bears. All
right, I think that's a pretty good amount of guys to go through here. So, of course, if you want to see more of our list, our consensus rankings, and how it compares to other major sites, including CBS, ESPN, Sleeper, Underdog, Fantasy Pros, RotoWire, all those sites, and I think there's a couple more I might be missing. We're going to have a cross-tab reference so you can see where they rank to where we rank, and you don't have to agree with us, but we'll show you what some normal drafting type fellas how they rank some of their guys, so you can have an idea what you might expect in your drafts. So I think we can end that right here. So don't forget that you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, YouTube Music. Go ahead and check us out on our YouTube channel at YouTube. youtube.com/at Wingman Fantasy Football. Go ahead, hit that notification bell, subscribe, like button, all that good stuff. You can also find all of our audio and video files on wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. And with that being said, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty.
And your fantasy team stay hot.
Not bad. Not bad.
Not bad.
That's a middle one. All right, guys, we will see you next time.